I'm very proud of my ass. I did suggest it for the poster for the picture and was told that that would be illegal, which I found both complimentary and interesting at the same time.
I pity you. Jersey girl, Yale, perfect starts, perfect Pollock, perfect everything, English people, Australians, everything like this. But you know, really, when you think about it, nobody is that perfect, right? You know.
For decades, Jack Nicholson was impossible to miss until he suddenly vanished from the limelight. One of Hollywood's most recognizable stars seemed to step away almost overnight. The public appearances stopped. The sightings became rare, and as the years passed, questions about his health, his life, and his whereabouts only grew louder. What really happened to Jack Nicholson? And why has so little been revealed about the life he now lives away from the spotlight? Join us as we uncover what is actually known about Jack Nicholson at 89 and the mystery surrounding his disappearance from public view. The man who ruled Hollywood for 5 decades. Jack Nicholson's career milestones are the kind of achievements that film scholars spend entire semesters on, and still feel like they have not covered them adequately. With 12 Academy Award nominations and 3 wins, his career certainly deserves a double take. He set the record for the most Oscar nominations for any male actor in history at the time of his last nomination. From Easy Rider in 1969, that launched everything, to 5 Easy Pieces in 1970, that proved the launch was not a fluke. Then Chinatown in 1974, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975, which won him his first Oscar, and which remains one of the 2 or 3 best performances in the history of American film. His last film was How Do You Know in 2010, when he was 73 years old. After that, he simply walked away from the limelight without a statement or a formal farewell announcement that the industry and the audience might have expected from someone of his stature. He simply stopped making films. The life he lived alongside those 52 years of work was far from a quiet one. He was one of the most celebrated hedonists in Hollywood history. The parties, the relationships, and the lifestyle that the tabloids covered with breathless enthusiasm, and that he lived with the confidence of someone who knew that his talent and charm could sustain almost any behavior without permanently damaging the thing that mattered most, which was the work. He was married once to actress Sandra Knight from 1962 to 1968. That marriage produced his daughter, Jennifer. After the divorce, he never married again. He had relationships, significant, long-term, publicly documented relationships with Angelica Houston, Rebecca Broussard, Lara Flynn Boyle, and others, but he chose not to formalize any of them. The result is a man who at 89 has 6 children by different women, has never had a marriage that lasted more than 6 years, has spent the better part of 3 decades living alone in the same house on Mulholland Drive, and who has, by every available account from the people who have seen him recently, retreated from the public world so completely that a paparazzi photograph of him standing on his own balcony in an orange t-shirt became international news. And when information disappears, people start looking for evidence anywhere they can find it. In Jack Nicholson's case, that search eventually focused on a handful of photographs. But what did those images actually reveal? The photographs that started the concern. In April 2023, paparazzi photographs were taken of Jack standing on the balcony of his Mulholland Drive home. The photographs were unremarkable in what they captured: a man in casual clothes outside his own house in the sunlight. What made them remarkable was what they represented. The first visible sighting of Jack in months, captured by photographers using long lenses from a distance because access to him in any other way was no longer available. The photographs showed him with disheveled hair and an unshaven beard, wearing a large orange t-shirt and lounge pants. Instagram accounts dedicated to celebrity news captioned them with descriptions of a man living alone, wandering through a large home by himself, cut off from the world that had once revolved around him. He had not been to a Lakers game since January 2019. He had not appeared at an industry event since the Academy Awards. He had not given an interview since around the time he stopped making films. A man who had been one of the most visible presences in Hollywood was no longer visible at all. And the contrast between the Jack the world knew and the man in those balcony photographs was enough to generate significant public worry. A source told the New York Post around the same period that Jack did not like to be seen much in public, that he had been observed looking a little wobbly at a social appearance at the Carlisle Hotel, and that his inner circle preferred that people remember him as he was. That last phrase, "remember him as he was," is the kind of thing that generates its own set of anxieties, because it suggests that the current version differs from the remembered version in ways the inner circle is actively managing public exposure to. Alongside the concern generated by the photographs and the sources came something more directly worrying: reports of possible cognitive decline. The dementia speculation that circulated online from 2023 onward was never confirmed or denied by Jack or anyone officially speaking on his behalf. It existed as a rumor, sustained by the absence of anything concrete to either confirm or dismiss it. In the vacuum of official information, speculation fills every available space. What everyone who knew him wanted, and what the family eventually provided, in fragments, through individual statements and rare interviews, was something more reliable than paparazzi balcony photographs and anonymous New York Post sources. Eventually, the speculation ran into a simple problem. The people closest to Jack Nicholson were telling a very different story. So who was the public supposed to believe? The grandson, who said he was 100% fine. Duke Nicholson is Jack's grandson, the son of Jack's daughter, Jennifer, and he gave an interview to The Hollywood Reporter in which he offered the kind of update that the family had been largely avoiding providing publicly. Duke said his grandfather was doing great, that he was 100% fine, and that he spent his time making magic. He was 20 years old at the time of the interview, a young actor building his own career, and he spoke about his grandfather with the warmth of someone who has access to the private reality rather than the public speculation. He revealed that his grandfather was doing great and was 100%. Those words circulated immediately and widely, because the hunger for reassurance about Jack Nicholson's well-being among the public that had grown up watching his films is genuine and significant. The information they contained was limited. A 20-year-old's assessment of his grandfather's health is not the same as a medical report, but the emotional weight it carried was real. Lara Flynn Boyle, who dated Jack for approximately 7 years in the 1990s and early 2000s, told People magazine that her former partner spent his days making magic and that the world of Jack is always here, that there was no retiring for the world of Jack. The warmth in her description was genuine. However, her access to current information about him was not specified. What both Duke's interview and Boyle's comments represented was the pattern that has defined public information about Jack's health since his retreat from public life. Fragments offered by people who care about him that communicate reassurance without providing the specific details that would either confirm or definitively dismiss the concerns that the balcony photographs and the absence from Lakers games had generated. For nearly 2 years, nobody had seen Jack Nicholson in public. The rumors kept growing, the questions kept piling up, and the lack of answers only fueled more speculation. Then came one appearance. One night that instantly became headline news and forced millions of people to take a second look. at everything they thought they knew about his condition. The SNL 50 appearance that changed the conversation. On February 16, 2025, Jack Nicholson appeared at the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special. He had not been seen publicly since his appearance at a Lakers playoff game in May 2023. The gap between those two sightings was nearly 2 years, which meant that every photograph and video from the SNL 50 appearance was scrutinized with an intensity that most celebrity appearances never attract. He appeared alongside his daughter Lorraine, who accompanied him to the event. His job was to introduce Adam Sandler, an assignment that required him to be on stage, in front of the camera, before an audience that understood they were witnessing something rare. He wore an all-black outfit with his signature tinted frame glasses and a beret bearing a New York Yankees logo. He looked like Jack Nicholson. He looked like himself, dressed the way he had always dressed, carrying the presence that 50 years of movie stardom had built. He used a cane. Photographs taken as he left the Carlyle Hotel in New York City after the event showed him walking with it. The photographs were shared widely, with the cane generating commentary that ran in 2 directions simultaneously. Concern from the people who measured it against the man who had once swung a golf club across Jack Torrance's hedge maze, and reassurance from the people who noted that using a cane at 87 years old is an entirely unremarkable accommodation to aging, and that he was dressed perfectly and appeared alert and engaged. Adam Sandler, who had co-starred with Jack in Anger Management in 2003, added to the introduction with the specific warmth of someone who genuinely loves the person they are talking about. He told Jack, "Love you, brother," not as a celebrity performance, as a man expressing genuine affection for someone he cares about. The SNL 50 appearance was the most public evidence available that Jack Nicholson was alive, present, and able to show up for something important. It was also evidence that showing up now required a cane, a daughter beside him, and a rare public commitment that his inner circle had clearly decided this event warranted. The internet responded with relief. "Still the coolest guy in the room," someone commented on the photographs. "Still looking good and stylish. He's still Jack." The comments captured something real, that the attachment people feel to Jack Nicholson is not the abstract fan devotion that attaches to a celebrity brand. It is something more specific and more personal, built from the specific characters he created across 50 years of extraordinary work. But if anyone outside the family would know how Jack Nicholson was really doing, who better to ask than a friend who had known him for 50 years? The friendship that survived everything. In July 2025, Danny DeVito, who had appeared alongside Jack in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975 and had maintained a friendship across 50 years, told People magazine that he had just seen Jack a couple of weeks ago, that it had been his birthday a month ago, and that he was great. Danny's update was the most recent significant public statement from anyone with documented access to Jack, and it landed with the specific relief that follows a period of sustained uncertainty. He's great. From someone who had just seen him, not a source, not a friend of a friend. Danny DeVito, who had known Jack Nicholson for 50 years and had been in his presence weeks before saying it. Danny also thought back on what it had been like to film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest alongside Jack in 1975, describing being in the presence of a guy who was really at his moment, breaking out into the big time. He said there was no need for an icebreaker, that Jack had simply arrived and been exactly who he was, and that being in his orbit at that specific moment in his career was something DeVito recognized as extraordinary while it was happening. The friendship between Danny and Jack is one of the documented long-term relationships in Hollywood. Two men who met on the set of a film that became one of the greatest American movies ever made, and who have remained in each other's lives across 5 decades without the relationship ever becoming a tabloid story or a public performance. When DeVito says Jack is great, it carries the weight of 50 years of actual knowledge of who that man is. Yet even as friends like Danny DeVito worked to reassure the public, there was another chapter to Jack Nicholson's story that received far less attention. It wasn't about his health, his retirement, or the endless speculation surrounding his public appearances. It was about heartbreak. And for those who understood what Diane Keaton meant to his life, it may have been the most devastating development of all. The grief nobody talks about. Of all the things that the coverage of Jack Nicholson's health in 2025 has addressed, the one that carries the most emotional weight is also the one that received the least public attention: the death of Diane Keaton in October 2025. Keaton and Jack first appeared together in Reds in 1981, but it was their chemistry in Something's Gotta Give in 2003 that built the relationship that people who know both of them describe as one of genuine depth and mutual affection. They were not a romantic couple in their private lives, but the friendship that developed out of working together was real and sustained across more than 2 decades. After Keaton's death, it felt like Jack had lost a sister, that Keaton had been one of the people he felt genuinely comfortable confiding in, and that her death had shaken him in ways that went beyond the ordinary grief of losing a colleague. Friends were worried about the toll the loss was taking on him, both emotionally and physically, in the context of an already reclusive lifestyle that had been limiting his social connections for years. Keaton had kept her declining health private. Her passing forced Jack, by the account of people close to him, to confront his own mortality in ways that the combination of his age and his isolation were already making it difficult. He was 88 years old. He had not acted since 2010. He had not been to a Lakers game since 2019, except for that brief 2022 and 2023 appearance. His closest friends were dying. The social world that had organized around him for 50 years was contracting. The concerns about his emotional well-being in the months following Keaton's death were real, documented, and expressed by people who were genuinely worried. Not tabloid speculation, but the documented testimony of insiders who were watching a man they loved navigate an accumulation of losses and limitations that comes for everyone who lives long enough, but which lands differently when it lands on someone who spent 5 decades being the most alive person in any room he entered. The worries were understandable, but the clearest picture of Jack's life doesn't come from observers on the outside. It comes from the family members who never left his side: Lorraine, Ray, and the children who are there. The most reliable picture of Jack Nicholson's current life comes through his children, the people who have actual, regular access to him and who appear in the rare photographs that escape the privacy of Mulholland Drive. His daughter Lorraine accompanied him to the SNL 50 event in February 2025, sitting beside him, walking with him, and being present for the rare public appearance in the way that a child who is caring for an aging parent is present. She posted a carousel of family photographs from the holiday season in early January 2025 that briefly appeared on her Instagram before being removed. Among those photographs was one of her hugging her father, the Oscar winner embracing his daughter, a glimpse of the private life that the balcony photographs had only partially captured. His son Ray was with him at that final Lakers game in January 2019. Ray is Jack's son with Rebecca Broussard. He was 17 at the time of that appearance. He is in his mid-20s now, old enough to be part of whatever support structure exists around his father. Jack Nicholson is the father of 6 adult children: Jennifer from his marriage to Sandra Knight, Caleb and Honey from his relationships with Susan Anspach, and Helena Kalianiotis, Lorraine and Ray from his relationship with Rebecca Broussard, and a daughter, Tessa, from a brief relationship with Janine Gorin. The complicated geometry of those relationships, spread across different mothers, different decades, and different levels of involvement in his life, means that the family around him now is assembled from a history that required significant reconciliation to produce the present. The picture that emerges from what is publicly documented is of a man who is genuinely cared for by the people in his life, who has made a deliberate and autonomous decision to withdraw from public view, and whose physical condition includes the accommodations that 89-year-old bodies require: a cane, reduced mobility, and the slowing that accumulates across decades of living. Whether the dementia speculation that circulated online is grounded in anything verifiable, neither Jack nor anyone officially speaking on his behalf has confirmed. His grandson said he was 100%. Danny DeVito said he was great. His daughter stood beside him at a major public event and smiled for photographs. These are not the gestures of a family managing a catastrophic situation. They are the gestures of people who love someone, who are trying to protect his privacy, and who show up when it matters. Is Jack Nicholson's retreat from public life the autonomous choice of a man who has earned the right to disappear on his own terms? Or is it the clearest signal that the world has been offered about what his health actually looks like now, carefully managed by the people who love him and don't want him to be reduced to anything less than what he was? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.